Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day.
Happy hump day. How are you?
Not bad, man. Still recovering from playing 54 holes of golf this past weekend, but
A lot
uh,
of wins.
then we had the power go out here for tornadoes. So not tornado, but severe weather, tornado-like winds. So it's been a fun week, but yeah, it's going by fast. How about you?
Yeah, sounds like it. Yeah, we're staying busy, prepping for the move. Lots of things going on. Looking forward to the long weekend for Memorial Day. So it'll be nice to have a 4 day weekend.
Memorial Day.
Labor Day.
Well, shout out to our sponsors, Multi-Service Fuel Card, our newest one, been around since before Will and I were alive, 1978. Which kind of shows you the longevity of a company. They're doing something right. I know several drivers that use their fuel card. Great things to say, and yeah, reach out to Jessica or any of the people over there. Great people.
Yeah, 100%. Then we have Trio Inc. They do all of our back end stuff, our graphics. They do offshore staffing, black box employees, a few of their workers. They do a great job. And again, any cool graphics or anything you see from the Two Dogs page is them. And we've got Sales Dash CRM. It's a freight centric CRM. Black box uses it. We love it. It's built out for freight, right? So a lot of CRMs you get them and you got to build it out. Josh comes with a freight background, and it's fantastic. And we've got our banner sponsor, Tavs Factoring. Great group. They're always available. Cool thing about them, with the factoring company, a lot of times you might call an automated system. They're available 24/7. Great guys over there.
Yeah, looking forward. We're gonna have them on, I think, sometime in September or October. It should be great. Shout out to, you see Will and I's company at the bottom. They're honorary sponsors as well. HT Ships, if you're looking to be an agent. Will's expanding in Birmingham. Black Box, obviously his company.
Yeah. So episode 23, Two Dogs, One Pod. Man, I'm pumped about this guest. This is a guy that I've been following for quite some time. Really respect and admire what he's done. For those of you that don't know, we're having on Chris Brewer, President and CEO of River City Logistics. Yeah, pumped about this one.
Yeah, it should be fun. It kind of shows you how small the logistics world is. I mean, I know Chris's company has ties to Reno, which, where my company's based, and shows you kind of how small the small logistics world is. But yeah, I'm excited to talk to Chris. He's got a great story. It should be fun.
Yeah, very small, big industry. Well, without further ado, we'll go ahead and bring Chris onto the stage. Chris, how are you?
I'm great, gentlemen. How are you?
Doing good. Can't complain.
Yeah, can't complain. Thanks for coming on. We know we were talking pre-show. You're squeezing us in before a long road trip, so we appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, 'tis the season for us. I just recently shared on Chris Jolly's podcast. We do a lot of our stuff face to face, just kind of the way we like to build out our network and earn the trust of our people. So I'm going on the road for the next 6 weeks. I think I'm gone 2 or 3 days every week. So I'm super pumped to be on here. I've followed both of you guys for quite some time. Appreciate the good content you guys are throwing out there. I really love the graphic, by the way. I think it's sweet.
So that's true. That's one of our sponsors. Yeah,
I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I get them to do some of the black box graphics as well. Man, yeah, they do fantastic work, and like I said, they do offshore logistics, and we have a few of their workers, and man, they're fantastic.
So they do back end offshoring, like operational stuff, and they do imagery.
Yeah, so I think the imagery is something that they're just now starting to get into. I think that we're one of the first projects. So one of the owners over there, JJ, reached out and we were starting this, and I've kind of been connected with him for a while. He was like, hey, we're looking to get into this space. How about we do the back end for the podcast? We were like, yeah. I mean, Matt doesn't have a background with that. Neither do I. I mean, that was my main concern before taking on this project. It's like, hey, pretty busy as is. I don't have the time to do all this stuff. So, man, without them, I don't think that we would have come as far as we have as far as, just having simple, the background, right? Without them, it would be a black screen.
Well, even posting and uploading, to YouTube and all that stuff that, Will and I don't want to get into. So they're a big help.
Yeah, huge help.
There's only so many hours in the day, fellas. You guys are both highly functioning professionals. I'm not sure if you have kids. I have 3. There's just not enough time in the day to get things done. Good mentor of mine once said, hire people that are smarter than you. So kudos to employing those folks to get your back end stuff done, because it's pretty sharp, man.
Yeah, 100%, man. I like that. fantastic advice. One of those people that used to have trouble delegating, right? I was a bit of a control freak to an extent, right? Like I wanted to do everything my way, wanted to do it myself. And that's something I've been working on over the past 18 months to 2 years, is really delegating, letting go, and passing some things on over. Because as you said, there's only so many hours in the day. And man, talk about burnout or just driving yourself crazy.
Yep, I heard that.
Yeah. Well, man, we like to ask all of our guests just kind of how they got into the industry, which I don't know, man, you could be different, but most people, they don't go to school in third grade and they're like, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to run a freight brokerage. So, I mean, how did you kind of stumble into it?
I think like a lot of people by accident, truthfully, that's kind of the way it happened for me. I pursued a career in marketing, and I was working for a publishing company when I was in college, and had a paid internship and then worked there full time in my 5th year of college while I wrapped up my baseball career. Didn't get the job that I thought I was going to get. And so I just kind of stumbled into logistics. My first job was an entry-level dispatcher for a very successful food grade tanker company located right here in Dubuque, Iowa. I did that. I moved out west, and we started to open a few terminals and get those things up and off the ground. And I really just fell in love with the art and the idea of taking an idea from paper and then putting it into reality. And so I did that, and we had I think a terminal of about 150 power units, and that was a lot of fun. From there, I got recruited at a startup brokerage up in Reno, the 775, the biggest little city in the world, right, Matt?
Yeah, we were just talking about that.
It's so crazy how so many people, influential people in the freight world are connected to Reno. It's tricky, but so I went there. I learned a ton. I worked for a great organization. I relocated to be closer to my wife. We were living, apart for about 18 months, and I took some time off in the industry over 2 years, and then I got into the game, as an agent, and just kind of built up our brand over the last 5.5 years to what it is today.
Oh, very cool. I didn't know that about your company. I didn't know you had started as an agent.
Yeah. So started in December of 2018, just by myself, and then we've slowly kind of grown that in, and the goal the whole time was independence. It's when you're going to bootstrap your business the way that I fully intended on doing it and the way that I have done, it just takes a little bit longer, right? I mean, you don't have the $500,000 in working capital that, what people don't talk about is all these placements, these deposits that you have to put down for these factoring companies to get even the smallest line of credit. So we just went the safe route. We built out our operation on the back end. We really focused on customer acquisition and growth. And then we were ready. We spun off into our own authority, was last May, I believe, May of 23.
Yeah, you make a great point. I think a lot of people don't realize that. I had someone comment, I don't know, a week ago, I had like 10 years of experience. They're like, why wouldn't you just start off and, go be a broker and, keep 100% right away? But as you said, I mean, the amount of money and the factoring companies that won't work with you and, the capital for your own tech, I mean, it's a pretty, big investment if you just start yourself, one day with everything.
Yeah, it's a tough mountain to climb, I think. I'm going to kind of be releasing some steps and processes to ultimately gain independence in the future. I'll save that for a later date. But I thought that the way that we did it was definitely unique, especially when we were coming to market, meeting with OTRs and Triumphs of the world. They were at first, you tell them, hey, we're bringing over book of X amount. The initial reaction is like, you're lying. Like nobody's heard of that happen before, right? And so we had to, I just mentioned this the other day. We had to kind of call on some favors from people that I had made friends with in the industry, and we had to wire sizable chunks of money to some of these factoring companies. And in most cases, it didn't even cover the cost of the line of credit. It was just like, we're going to kind of take your word for it, and then you're going to have to prove to us. That's one of the biggest struggles of getting off onto your own is, one, financial literacy, number two, cash flow, number three, navigating the world of credit. You could probably have a podcast, an entire episode on that alone.
100%. I mean, so that's what we've done at Black Box, and we're a few steps behind you, right? We're just now starting to transition to the Black Box Authority. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of how we saw it. We didn't have the money, or then even, man, putting the people, places, and systems to oversee that credit, right? And I mean, we didn't have the financial literacy. I mean, when we started Black Box, I was 21 years old. I didn't go to college. I didn't know. We didn't know how to do all that, right? But what made sense to us, we were good at sales. We could build through the agency, and then delegate some of that stuff. So we just retained a shell CFO that comes with, like 30 years of experience in the industry. And we're kind of going through what you're talking about, right? Talking to these factoring companies and trying to move the book of business, and, struggling with credits. Like, that's a big thing. It's like, okay, even if you have the authority and all that stuff, if you're not facturable, if your invoices aren't viable, then you can't source the capacity. And then you're just setting yourself up for failure. So it's like, how much of some people, man, it might not be worth it. Just the headache and the massive undertaking that it is, right? It makes sense for a lot of people to just scale an agency, which, at least for me, I hear a lot about independent agents, but not people scaling agencies. In Birmingham, there's a lot of agencies that have scaled, and it's very, I don't know, it makes sense to me, right?
100%.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, you recruit agents all the time. I mean, it's most of those people, they're looking for freedom, right? Freedom from maybe their previous employer, who maybe, stepped on their toes or looked over their shoulder all the time on their business. The most of the people that I meet that become agents, they want to be their own boss, right? They want to dictate their paychecks, and a lot of them, oftentimes, they're not thinking like big picture. So kudos to you, Will. I mean, I had kind of guessed the last time we spoke that you were kind of going down that route. So feel free to, give me a call. I'd be more than happy to kind of help you through, at least teach you the stuff that we did wrong, and make sure that you don't go down that same path too.
Yeah, man. We'll definitely, we'll need to get in touch. Yeah, we kind of I know I've reached out a few times, almost like even in Tennessee, right? Like, as soon as I'm leaving, then you arrive. So I'm glad we finally got the chance to connect.
Now, you have assets too, as well, Chris. You have a asset-based brokerage, right?
Yeah. So we have 14 power units. We just scaled back from 18. We got out of some of our older equipment that was just posing to be a liability at this point. You get north of 500,000 miles. Those tractors, they're not worth a whole lot, and they're constantly in the shop. So, our goal is to continue scaling strategically. And, our asset division gives us a really solid backing, especially in the two markets that the two markets we have terminals in. Dubuque, Iowa, we're 3 hours from Chicago, 3 hours from Milwaukee, 5 from Minneapolis, 5 from St. Louis, 5.5 to Kansas City. So we like to strategically place those with new opportunities, as well as Northern Nevada and Reno.
Yeah. Man, what you're kind of talking about, or even backtracking a little bit when you were kind of doing your intro, right? You've spoken like a true visionary. You're talking about taking this idea, this art from paper to form, right? And what I've always respected about keeping up with you, it seems like you really love to build, right? So I want to pull up a LinkedIn post that you made that I really liked from about a week ago. Chris said, "I'm just going to come right out and say this. I have zero interest in selling my business. For those of you in my network and those of you looking to make a connection with me to send me your pitch, I have no intention of selling my business. Don't ask me about my exit strategy, because there isn't one. Want to talk to me about acquiring your client's business? Now it's a different story. If you want to read awesome sales and leadership content, continue following me. But please stop acting like you know how well my business is doing. We're doing just fine." So, man, that's really cool to see. Like, in this market, you see a lot of companies, unfortunately, really, really struggling. And it seems like you guys have been able to, steadily build, right? And you're thriving in the market.
Yeah, I at first, when the market was getting weird, I had a couple people in the industry say, "Hey, you might not want to talk about the successes that you're having. You might put a target on your back." And I kind of stayed quiet for a little bit, and then I realized, that this is also a good example of why we're successful, is because we're not shy about it, right? I mean, I tell my people all the time, and the way that we built our business is we're service first, always, every day of the week. We're not going to go chase 3 to 5% margin clients, because that just doesn't fit our ICP. Now, I'm not saying that that's bad business. I'm just telling you that doesn't fit the model that we've built. And so, I put that post out there because as I continue building my personal brand and River City Logistics brand, I get a lot of solicitations, and they're just really, really bad intro, automatic connection request, automatic sales pitch. And it's a lot of people just kind of generalizing that, hey, the freight market's bad. We're going to throw some BS at the wall about, hey, we can buy your business and get you out of debt. Where it's like, we have no debt. We have no financial investors. We have no backing whatsoever, except from the hard work that me and my team have put in and the money that we've been able to put away in the bank. And I think that's what's really allowed us to not only make it through this, but to continue to prosper in this market, because we don't owe anyone a dollar.
Yeah. That's fantastic, and yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it's great to talk about what's working, right? Because I mean, yeah, it is a bad market, but people are still doing well, right? And it's always nice to look at and see. It's like, hey, man, like what are they doing that's working for them, right? Like learning from your peers or really like your competition, right? Because not everybody. I mean, it's a bad market, but a lot of people are still doing well and have found ways to succeed. We got a question here from Zachary. He says, is it possible to bypass a factoring company by leveraging relationships with lenders or capital companies? I've got an answer. Chris, correct me if you disagree. So what we're talking about is factoring companies for the carriers, right? So say me, broker, post load to board, carrier calls, and then they're checking their factory company to see if they'll buy it. So it's not about the broker necessarily having the money, not having the money. It's just about the carriers being able to take the load because they're being funded by the factoring company.
Yeah, 100% spot on. The thing is, 97% of trucking companies are less than 20 power units. 97% of trucking companies can't afford to wait 30 or 45 or 60 days to collect direct, right? It's a $1 in, $1 out model. So the answer to the question is, yeah, Will, you answered it correctly. It's not about, is Black Box or is HD Ships or is River City Logistics financially in a good position to pay their bills. It's the carrier is factoring, so somebody's buying that receivable, they're not going to trust you. Like it doesn't really matter. Like if you have no credit, if you don't have a crest on DAT or truck stop, if you don't have well-established credit lines with these factoring companies, they're not going to trust you. I'll give you the perfect example. We were doing, we did north of $60 million last year in annual revenue, and we had a $25,000 credit line with Love's. And one of their high-level executives was like, basically, this is our policy. It's a firm, hard line in the sand. We're not changing your credit limit until you hit 12 months of authority. And on, day 366, we picked up the phone and that changed. But, a lot of these factoring companies are just going to stick to their guns and you just have to play ball in their court.
Well, especially in today's market, I mean, you're seeing so many companies, go under and not pay their bills. And I'm sure that maybe applies too to if there's so many people trying to exit and get out. Maybe that's why these kind of mass messages of trying to sell your companies, you're seeing, the model, I guess, maybe a couple of years ago was just scale a business and sell it. And, some people are just thinking that's everyone's mindset, which it's, not.
Yeah, that's a good point, Matt.
Sorry, Will, were you about to say something?
No, it's a really good point. Sorry about that.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, speaking on the factoring thing, and then with the increase of fraud and scams over the last 18 months, 2 years, you got to think that everybody's really, really tightening up. Unfortunately, a lot of people have been burned, right? And you're seeing more and more of it, or at least, I don't know, man, like peak COVID, it seems like it really ramped up. So, kind of like Chris is saying, you just gotta play ball. It is what it is. And then, man, like factoring is very important to a lot of these trucking companies. A lot of people are anti-factoring. I think this is a great place to plug our banner sponsor, TAFs. If you're in the market for a factoring company, man, cannot recommend these guys enough. Cash flow is king after all. And again, man, just it's similar to, so it's aligned with the whole concept of this agent model, right? So if you're a trucking company, small trucking company, it might not make sense for me to employ a full-time person to handle my APAR. So like, why don't I just outsource that to a factoring company to get my cash in 1 to 2 days as opposed to invoicing 30 days, tracking it down. It makes sense for a lot of people. And like Chris said, the majority of companies are using factoring companies, and there's a reason for it, right?
Yeah, it's about trying to get the most with as little overhead as possible without sacrificing the service, right? So, I like the train we're on. We're talking about business development, building a business, growing an existing business. So let's stay on that train. The one thing that we found in our discovery was, how can we use technology and our vendors' technology to streamline our products and services and back-end operations so that we can still deliver a very high level service, but also be very strong on the bottom line. And so in all of our decisions and all of our vendors that we chose to work with, our TMS, our factoring, our our local banks, other institutional financial services, it was, okay, what does the tech do for us? How can it help our team? How does it quickly get us paid? How does it limit and minimize errors? That's a big thing that I don't think people talk about. Like, you send a Raycon to a shipper, and you're not doing right by them, like, you're going to be in big trouble. So putting together processes and systems to ensure that doesn't happen is incredibly important. But that's just kind of the way that we looked at it, and it works for us, right? There's a million different ways to build your business, and the one thing that I'll tell anybody who's listening is take your time, put together a process, put together some qualifying questions for your prospects, your vendors, people that you want to do business with, people that you're looking to bring in as a vendor. Really just vet them, and ultimately, it's okay to make them compete against one another, right? We're competing against each other amongst thousands of other people in the marketplace every day. Competition is good, and competition is good for your business because it's ultimately going to allow you to buy at the best rate possible.
Yeah. I mean, in the spirit of a freight brokerage, right? Anything and everything's negotiable. Anything in life, any transaction. But man, you touched on so many things that we're aligned with that we weren't. So for us, when we started Black Box, we were new to it, right? We hadn't run any businesses before. We didn't have any experience. So we had to learn as we went, right? And a lot of that was maybe looking at people like you and seeing what you've done and like what works. So you're talking about these systems or leveraging some technology for optimization, right? So we got started, it was rugged and fast, right? So a lot of like the messiness, cleaning up, we've had to go back and do, and then looking at it, we don't look at technology for, at least I see some school of thought that's, technology is going to replace this or that. We don't look at it for where can it replace people, but where can we leverage it to optimize efficiency, right? And we've been able to put some things in place with companies. And man, for the longest time, I wasn't against tech, but we're in Birmingham, Alabama. We're a Southern company. We're Southern people, right? So we're very relationship based, old school. Then over time, I've been exposed to this stuff that I was otherwise ignorant to, where it's opened up a lot of doors for us, right? So, man, you touched on a lot of stuff that I really like there. Yeah. We got another question here from Zachary. I don't know if we're the best suited crowd to answer this, but how do we play the factoring side of the equation in the future? So nobody knows, man. we'll see what happens.
I'm not 100% certain. I think, from our perspective, if you can mass upload invoices and drop them in a CSV, and they can automatically upload, and all your paperwork's done in one swoop, that still is a manual process. So I'm not really sure how AI factors in. I wish I had the answer for you, Zachary.
It'll probably be, this is just my take, right? I'm not a tech guy, but I could see automation being much more applicable to the factoring side as opposed to AI, right? Where you can, it's acting on a set of rules, right? So you can automate otherwise human processes a lot of brokerages do it for maybe a large enterprise customer where they're having to go in and upload invoices. You can automate from your TMS, connect to EDI or whatever, where it's automatically uploaded. So things like that, maybe. JJ, Jamie, Guitrio, he said factoring companies now have API tokens. Yeah, man, it seems like. Do what?
No, I was curious too, as long as we were talking kind of about, business development, if we're kind of closing the table on AI, how did we had Nick Dangles on and Will Jenkins on, and you see a lot of talk about, training and just different freight markets. I was just kind of curious, when you started, how did you guys, go about setting the processes for, training your reps, and, has that evolved, or, kind of what are your thoughts on, training?
That's a really good question, and it's at the very top of the list for how you build a good business. So one of my partners, Nick Lester, got to give this guy a ton of credit. He's a wizard when it comes to implementing, creating, drafting, and then ultimately implementing processes and procedures here. He basically wrote the whole book. Our training process costs us about $15,000 to $17,000 out of pocket before that person makes a single dollar of revenue for the company. And the reason why we put a heavy emphasis on training is we don't hire a ton of people. We only hire maybe twice a year in groups. and we bring them in waves. And so for the first week, they sit in our conference room. If they're new to freight, if they've been in freight, it doesn't matter. We're going to teach them the way that we know how to do business. So we're going to go through the basics, teach them the language, equipment, the whole nine, run them through our processes, get them acclimated with our TMS, and then they'll shadow somebody for 3 or 4 weeks. They generally won't pick up a phone and do any negotiation until week 5 or 6. But it's also why we don't lose a lot of people, because we set them up for success and ultimately give them the platform and the tools to, change their life monetarily. But I like the fact that we talked about that, because if you're not training your people with the intention of giving them every single tool and opportunity to make you as a founder and an owner revenue, and that's what it's about, right? It's about bringing in good, positive cash flow, then you're just not doing it for the right reason.
Yeah. Now you see a lot of turnover and a lot of, layoffs in this market, and kind of the burn and churn is, kind of brought up frequently in logistics. I mean, it's sales in general, but that's a good point that you guys kind of track the exact dollar amount. I mean, that's a pretty big, investment that I think people forget too. I mean, companies are investing a lot of money. If you don't turn out and don't produce, you're out, 15 to 17 grand.
100%. And it's that's like writing a check that you can't cash. If you're not putting all your eggs in that basket and giving them the best opportunity, then why did you hire that person in the first place? That's kind of been our mentality from day one. Also, too, like you said, the turn and burn is, these people are backed with millions of dollars, and their investors are now saying, hey, I own 30% of this company. You're going to take X amount. You're going to go hire 50 people, and I want X amount of revenue in return. The way that we've built our business, bootstrap from the ground up, that allows us to make our own decisions and to not have to listen to that outside noise.
Yeah, that's a great point. Do you train on the asset side as well and the brokerage side, or is it kind of neither will or I, obviously work for companies that have assets. So does that kind of make the, training, or I'm sure it gives people a better perspective, of the industry? Because I mean, there's just seeing that you guys have assets and, drivers and, not just the brokerage side.
Yeah, so when we hire somebody new, the asset side is a much smaller window for training, because we're only hiring people that have experience in running a trucking company. That is a no-fail zone. You're right. If you have a bad week or 2 bad weeks, you're automatically in the red for the month. So the training process is a little bit more, hey, we're going to put you in the fire. You're going to be, attached to the hip to, so-and-so for the next 3 or 4 weeks. With the intention that, you guys are making decisions jointly. We don't train our brokerage people on how our assets work. What we do is all of our business is streamlined through our 3PL, and then we allocate our asset capacity to our fleet. So we don't sign multiple contracts. I wanted to build, for the sake of my APAR team, I wanted to have cash flow in and out and not multiple different ways. It made it a little bit easier for us to manage that cash flow. So what we do is we'll bid on things specifically for our asset division. We'll allocate X amount of trucks per week, per month, per customer. And then we'll say, hey, these are going to be, we have 5, 6 trailers spotted. Just preload every order that comes in for this lane, and our asset division will pick it up.
Oh, that makes sense. So, I mean, you touched on a good point too. I mean, you're hiring a lot of people on the brokerage side, without experience, which I guess makes sense. There's probably not a lot of brokerages. There's a lot of trucking companies, I'm guessing, in Dubuque, Iowa, but there's not a lot of brokerages there. So you pretty much, have to invest in training. You're not going to find someone very often, I would guess, with 5 years of logistics experience sitting in Dubuque, Iowa, looking to, change jobs.
100% spot on. So what we've been able to do is, I went to a local Catholic liberal arts school here, Clark University, my alma mater. My COO, Jacob Shireman, he worked here at another local Catholic liberal arts school, Loras College. And then there's a third university, University of Dubuque. 2 years ago, we made it our point. We knew that getting good talent was going to be difficult. So instead of buying our talent, like the NBA does with their new big three, we built our talent. So we call ourselves the late 90s, early 2000s Spurs. If you're a basketball fan, you're totally going to pick up on what I just said. But so we just had this idea that we needed to go to the colleges and universities and get in with their internship programs and their internship coordinators. And so we've been able to start an internship program going on year 3, and we hire about 50% of those kids post graduation. So we're averaging roughly 2 to 3 college grads every June. They've already been with us for at least a summer. We do offer them hourly employment throughout the fall and the spring. Our intention is to bring them in, show them what this industry looks like, show them that you can A, have fun doing it, B, make a good living. And then ultimately, we want those people to be the future of the organization.
I think that's so important what you brought up there, because we had a COO and the founder of a $300 million brokerage on, what was it, about a month ago. And he basically said they don't hire anyone with experience. They built up from 0 to 300 million since 2017 just with hiring bartenders, people with the right personality fit. I know Black Box is majority, if not all, people without experience, and just it's kind of cool to see that there's a lot of brokerages that still scale without necessarily just buying brokers in that regard.
Well, it's tough, at least in my opinion, at least in this area. It's tough to find people with experience unless for an entry-level brokerage position, it's kind of, for the most part, it makes sense to get somebody new, right? Like we've sourced some people with experience for leadership roles, but our entry-level brokers, maybe we have 2 that came with a little bit of experience. We got a great question here from Joshua Harrison for you, Chris. He says, how does your target margin profile for your asset side compare to the broker side? And how do you manage hitting your targets in a down market, particularly on the asset side?
It's a great question, and I love your content, Joshua. I love how you're a big family guy, by the way. Been following you for a couple of years. Okay, really good question. I'm going to try to give you a 30,000-foot view without giving you my recipe for success. But if you take whatever you want from it, we use our assets to leverage and build future very strong relationships for our brokerage division. So we are generally using that as almost as a loss leader. Our goal is 3 to 5% on that. It's not a lot. And so your question about hitting targets, our targets are strictly correlated to how do we build out our network to move move that lane or that business to our brokerage division, or how does that foster new opportunities in different markets? I just said this the other day. Our sales approach is to complete closed loops. We want to run the same carriers and our dedicated fleet from Dubuque to Kansas City and back. Now, if we have 10 going in per week and 2 coming back, we're gonna go and spend 5 or 6 days of the month, and we're gonna go knock on doors face to face and find that return load. That's kind of the way that we built it out. That's really going to be our approach moving forward. It's not for everybody. We don't have an inside sales team of 10 people. And here's the truth. We have 3 legitimate salespeople in our entire organization, but we have a lot of really, really good customer-facing account managers who do a great job of taking leadership's vision and then implementing that and providing capacity and solutions for their clients.
That's really cool to have 3 dedicated salespeople. And you said you are on pace to do 75 million or 60 million in revenue last year with just 3 dedicated salespeople. That's really impressive. Yeah.
The one thing that we did in the last 2 years was customer acquisition is still out there. Don't get me wrong. It's still possible, and we're still doing that. It's not at the same clip as it once was in 2017, 2018, 2019, even 2020, it was totally doable when things were going crazy. But what we did, man, is we bunkered in. We had very, very good conversations with our top 10, and we've grown within their network. Now, like I said, I get a lot of face-to-face time with my clients, executive level people in these organizations. And the one reoccurring theme that I'm hearing across the board is we're slimming our network, and we're going to the end with the people who have bent over backwards for us and delivered time and time again. And out of our top 5 clients, a lot of those people have scaled back the amount of vendors that they use by 15 or more percent. That is a real number. And a lot of them are saying, hey, we're really not entertaining the traditional standalone 3PL. We like the flexibility of being able to utilize your small fleet or your medium-sized fleet. So I do think that is going to be a very strategic play for us moving forward as we continue to grow. It's going to be, hey, we're going to be able to offer you a multitude of services, both on the 3PL and the asset side.
it's really probably about how you position it, right? Because it's interesting. I don't know anything about having an asset side and a brokerage, but I hear both ways. I hear a lot of it that it's really kind of just like what you said. They complement each other and they can kind of be sold together, and it works out great. And then I hear others say, well, they never want to use the brokerage. Like they have a great customer on the asset side. They've been trying forever to switch them over to the brokerage, but this company is so bent on never using brokers. They only use the asset side. So it's kind of interesting because you hear both things out there. It's just an interesting topic, I think, in general.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out the best way to say this. We technically don't give our prospects an option. The way that we organize all of our business is the contract and the BCA is signed between our 3PL MC and said shipper, and then promises are made on paper for asset allocation. We've also been told, hey, we don't want to do it that way, and then we just didn't onboard the shipper. And that's okay. You have to kind of draw a hard line in the sand as a business owner and say, hey, this is how we're going to conduct business. And for us, it makes a lot of sense. And if it doesn't make sense for your prospect, that's okay. In most cases, you can kind of get them to the finish line by, for us, it's like, hey, we want one central contact. So this is how we structured our organization. You have one dedicated account manager. You don't talk to anybody on the fleet side. Everything's ran through the broker. Everything, right? So our fleet is in the same building as our brokerage. That dispatch department speaks to the account managers, relays ETAs. Everything is tracked through like Project 44, turbo tracking. Everything's relayed through one customer-facing person, and that allows that person to build a really good relationship with that shipper.
No, I love that. You guys spend a lot of time. It's obvious on different processes and executed really well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you've touched on ICP a number of times, right? Ideal customer profile. It seems like you guys have really honed in. I think that, I don't know, I mean, I could be wrong, but I think that many people maybe don't take the time to really identify what is their ideal customer profile. They might be chasing any and all freight when in reality, if the freight doesn't fit your operations and really what you're trying to accomplish, right, the load, maybe like a net return overall, long-term at least, it seems like you guys have done a really fantastic job on identifying who you want to work with, why you want to work with them, and have a clear-cut vision, right? You're able to convey that to your team, and everybody has direction, right? And direction's so important.
Yeah, I say this all the time, direction and purpose. Those are the two things that'll get you a long way in this business, right? If you know where you're heading and you know where the finish line is, then you ultimately know what you need to do to get you there. And then if you believe in it, it makes it far more attainable to finally get there. You said earlier, Will, I just love building things, solving problems. I'm just a regular dude who loves freight, and I love meeting new people, building new relationships. And so when you put those two things together, my job doesn't feel like my job. It just feels like my passion. And so that's why I'm, so active on LinkedIn, constantly talking about sales strategy, leadership. I ultimately want people to take that. I definitely don't want it to be a platform for, hey, this is a dumb idea, you're wrong. That's not how I do business. That's not how I interact with my people on LinkedIn. But there's so much negligence out there. And I say this all the time too, is we deal with other 3PLs and we haul some contractual freight for backhauls for our asset division. We run about 82% customer direct freight, but the level of incompetence sometimes that I see out there with some of these operations, it sometimes, gets my mind going on our Monday fleet operations meeting when I sit in and ask for an update. And, we're talking about people not paying us layovers because they lied about the appointment for Walmart and it was missed and never rescheduled. And my truck's sitting in for your sake, Will, in Birmingham for 4 days and we're not getting paid. It's like, guys, what are we doing? I mean, if you're a business owner or a leader in your 3PL and you are not actively trying to become a broker of choice for carriers, you're doing business the wrong way, period.
How is that managing too? We haven't talked much about the driver aspect, but I was just thinking about that as you were talking about, lying to drivers and, drivers are obviously, a frustrating time for them out in the road and, the market. And I was talking, we have an agent who, had a, I think 13, 14 truck fleet, and he's brokering freight now too. And he just decided to downsize his trucking company because dealing with the drivers and some of the stories he said was a lot more difficult than him than, focusing on the brokerage side. How is that, especially, is that more challenging, you think, managing, the drivers and and that aspect of it than managing, the brokerage operations?
I'll share this candidly. I think finding very good drivers that A, want to make money, B, will take care of and keep your equipment in really good shape is really hard. The way that we built up our fleet and our mentality, I shared that with you earlier, kind of as a loss leader or a very small net return. We decided early on that we were going to go and attract a higher caliber driver. So our average years of experience right now on staff is 17 years of OTR experience.
Oh, wow.
So we're paying our drivers at the very top of the market, specifically, like we're paying really well here in the Midwest, especially for a W-2 job where you don't have any expenses. So we're able to get a really high quality driver. But when we have to fill a truck, or if we get a delivery of 2 to 5 units at one time, that is difficult. But I'll say this, I've done a much better job with the help of my COO, Jake Shireman, of getting out of the day-to-day and not so much working in the business, but working on both of them and leading and being a much better leader and coach, setting the expectation for mid-level management. That's been my key. Accountability is my word for the year. That has really allowed me to be a better leader and really focus on the business as a whole. Although they are two separate entities, they serve the same purpose. So I look at them as one. But that's what I've been doing lately, right? And as much as I love sales, I still try to fit that in and do as much as I can. But right now, I'm really focused on making sure that we're doing all the right things, because if and when this thing flips soon, I'm telling you guys, the people that have been persistent and been following up and been politely and pleasantly, reaching back to folks, even when the response is, hey, not now, those are going to be the first people to get called. And I want to be on that short list.
Yeah, 100%. So that kind of what you're talking about, that concept, at least for me, this is an idea or concept that I really struggled with, the idea of working on the business versus working in the business, right? So at least for me, we got to a point where, I'm really good at brokering freight. That's why I went into this. But at a certain point, it's like, okay, well, now I'm an owner. I have employees. I have all these tasks, right? So I can't be in the trenches per se. Like, there's other things that I need to evolve and focus on. Kind of goes back to what we were discussing earlier, where it's just like, man, things change a little bit.
Yeah, and you'll see it and you'll feel it, Will. I mean, it's gonna come a point in time where, I think I mentioned something earlier this spring. I took a 10-day vacation for the first time since I started this thing and turned my phone off. Like, as a founder and an owner, when you put that much blood, sweat, and tears, and not only that, but money into your business, it was in year number 6 now that I knew I had the right team in place. I knew I had the right people. I could rely on them and depend on them. And to be honest with you, this place runs like a well-oiled machine when I'm out on the road, and I'm on the road quite a bit. And so I just want to give a huge shout out to our executive team and, our mid-level management who really carry out our vision. And then, all the people that believed in me and trusted my vision and my leadership. I love my people, man. I always give my people credit, because you don't go anywhere without good people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, what you're talking about is, I've heard many people say that. I mean, that's kind of like the goal of starting a company is if you're able to leave and everything's still running exactly as it's supposed to. At that point, you can look at it and be like, yeah, like I've done a good job building this out. But if and when it only runs right, if I'm there watching everything, micromanaging, it's like, you don't really, you have a business, but it's not a well-oiled machine, kind of like what you're describing. When you talk about River City, that whether it be the assets or the brokers, it sounds like everything's built out and very well done, really.
I appreciate that, man. Took a lot of hard work to get here, that's for sure. But, with risk comes reward. So if anybody's out there on the fence about, hey, where am I at in my career? What do I want to do? If you love this industry and you have some leadership ability, I always say, don't wait another day. If you don't like where you're at, you You can call Matt. You can be an agent. You can be your own boss. That's the beauty of this game, right? If obviously if you don't have a non-compete and non-solicit, we don't believe in that stuff over here. But I'm sure I know that there's a lot of people in the industry that still make people sign that stuff. But no, I love this conversation, man. I appreciate talking to people that love freight as much as I do, and it helps that you guys are pretty good dudes. So.
Oh, we appreciate you you coming to spend your afternoon with us before you hit the road. Well, man, we're creeping up on an hour. Is there anything else that you guys want to dive into?
I think we covered most everything I had. It was I learned a lot, and it was really fun having you on, Chris, and appreciate you you joining us.
Anytime, gentlemen. I hope that I'll run into you guys in person and get to meet you guys. I'm sure we'll cross paths eventually. And
Yeah.
I appreciate it, man. You just got a new member to the audience, so I'm looking forward to it. Keep putting out good content. Keep pushing us in the right direction, man. We need the positive people in this space need to become the majority and not the other way around. So keep fighting the good fight, guys.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Chris. We appreciate it.
Thanks again, Chris.
Yep. See you guys.
See ya.
Man, certified dog. Yeah, he's a great guest.
Yeah, fantastic guest. I learned a lot. Just a lot of what he said about leadership, and he made a lot of really good points, especially their training of how they do it. And he's obviously a numbers guy too. Some of the numbers he threw out, and yeah, really impressive.
Yeah, smart guy for sure. Well, as we wrap up episode 23, let's give a shout out to our sponsors. Multi-Service Fuel Card, as Matt pointed out at the beginning, they've been around forever. So if you're looking for a company with stability, somebody that's going to be here tomorrow, those are the guys. Discounted fuel, so important, affecting your bottom line. We got Trio Inc.
You can get a fuel card with them too, I believe, for their carrier. Something we haven't mentioned before, but just want to throw that out there as well.
Yeah, we'll be having them on as a guest next month, and we'll dive into it, all their capabilities. We got Trio Inc. They do all of our back end stuff, our graphics. They offshoring company out of the Philippines. Black Box employs a few of their workers. They do great work. We've got Sales Dash CRM, Freight Centric CRM. Great stuff there, built out for freight brokers. Black Box uses it, and we've got our banner sponsor, TAFS Factoring.
Yeah, can't say enough good things. Can't say enough good things about them. Excited to see them. I think we'll both see them, sometime coming soon. They'll be on the show as well. So, yeah, we're really lucky. We have a great group of companies, and what I didn't want to do, and I think you agreed with me on this, is just have sponsors that we don't really believe in what they're doing or their philosophy, but just because they agree that we're just going to put them on here, and we've been really lucky that we have sponsors that we are fully behind and like as people too.
Yeah, fantastic group. Well, that'll do it for episode 23. Stay tuned to the pages for our upcoming shows. We've got some exciting guests lined up for the next few weeks. Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah, we'll be back on Tuesday.
All right, Matt. Well, I'll see you.
Sounds good. See you next week.